The Amy Schumer story. She was once hailed as the queen of comedy.
Amy Schumer. If ever there was a celebrity destined for a crash and burn episode, it was her.
Yeah.
Just a few years ago, she was one of the most popular female comedians of all time, with a
Totally astroturfed. Nobody ever really liked her. I don't know why she was in anything.
string of successful stand-up tours, movie deals, Netflix specials, endorsements, fawning magazine articles, and all the apparatus of the Hollywood industrial complex behind her. A
Maybe
woman
it's
who
for
was not
girls.
only theoretically funny and a box office draw, but
Theoretically funny.
an outspoken feminist and activist who somehow managed to position herself behind every major trend and movement that looked to be gaining traction.
Yeah.
But it turns out that Amy Schumer's towering empire was built on a shaky foundation of stolen material, questionable talent, a massively inflated ego, box office flops, and extremely shitty personal conduct. And eventually,
I didn't know any of that. I just didn't think she was funny.
join me, your humble drinker, as we explore Crash and Burn, the Amy Schumer story. Schumer was born in 1981 in New York's Upper East Side, the daughter of wealthy Jewish and Protestant parents. Her dad ran a successful furniture business, and the family enjoyed a pretty cushy life for
That's
much of
nice.
Amy's childhood.
Good for
The
her.
good times weren't to last, though. The business eventually went bankrupt when she was 9, and her parents divorced a couple of years later. Oh wow, another troubled celebrity whose parents divorced at a young age. What are the odds? Amy soon discovered an interest in the performing arts and ended up studying theatre in college before eventually
I would've
drifting
never
into
guessed.
comedy. By the mid-2000s, she was a regular on the New York stand-up circuit, and in 2007, she made it to 4th place on the reality show Last Comic Standing, where she
That's pretty
impressed
good.
the judges with her mixture of dark, raunchy humour and ironic self-reflection. Positioned as a young up-and-coming talent with
I think that that's one of the things is that for a while in the 2000s and the 2010s, a lot of comedy was just like kind of self-depreciation and people really liked it. But I think that people went too far with it and it just kind of got to be weird. And I think that in general now it's not as appealing as it used to be. It started to get corny.
She was
It gets
soon
old.
booking guest roles in shows like 30 Rock, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and Girls, but Amy had her sights set on bigger things. Her
What's
2012 comedy special, Mostly Sex Stuff, was what really put her on the map as a major player. And
That's
it
what I always like. That was always my viewpoint about it, is that every time that I would listen to one of her jokes, it would be like some crude joke about or something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm a guy, like, I don't think I'm the target audience for this. It's just like weird.
basically set the tone for her entire sense of humour going forward. Crude, dark, self-deprecating, and weirdly obsessed with the workings of her own body. Oh my goodness, a female comedian whose entire act revolves around sex and dating. Whatever will they think of next? I mean, personally, watching an out-of-shape 30-something New Yorker spending 2 hours talking about what her looks and smells like sounds about as funny as a cancer diagnosis, but each to their own, I guess. Comedy truly is subjective, and somehow hers was working big time. Amy was soon being positioned as the next big thing, more edgy and daring than her contemporaries, willing
I
to
don't know why anybody thought this was ever edgy. It was so boring.
push boundaries and make
so
fun of
boring.
herself, and pretty soon she made the transition from guest star to movie star. 2015's Trainwreck, where she played a drunken, promiscuous party girl that was basically just a toned down version of herself, was well received by critics and went on to make $140 million at the box office against a $35 million budget. By now, Amy was riding
it's really
high
good.
with a string of successful comedy shows, TV appearances,
I didn't even know
favourable
about
news
this.
coverage, and a promising
This sounds like a movie that like is for girls, so I didn't see it.
career. What could possibly go wrong? Well, quite a lot as it turned out. The warning signs were there as early as 2011 during the roast of Charlie Sheen, where she made a joke about the recent death of Ryan Dunn in front of his best friend Steve-O, and well, it didn't exactly go down like she hoped.
And I know you must have been thinking it could have been me, and I know we were all thinking, why wasn't it?
Jesus Christ, if even Steve-O doesn't see the funny side, you know you've fucked up. But okay, fine, every comedian has an off day, I guess. First real mistake was one that many celebrities have fallen victim to over the years. Politics. She'd always been outspoken about her political views, but during the 2016 presidential race, she really
Let
kicked
me guess, she liked Hillary Clinton.
into high gear. At a show in Tampa, Florida, Amy decided to take a break from talking about her to go on an extended rant about how much she hated the Orange Man and how
Oh, Donald.
everyone needed to vote for Hillary Clinton instead because she said so, prompting boos from the audience and causing hundreds of people to walk out.
I would want to vote for that orange fake collar started.
Well, I think there's a bunch of other fat, like, upper middle class women that think this is hilarious. I bet, you know, that's really, the thing is that there's a huge audience for that kind of stuff. There's so many of them. I watched those ICE counter protests and I see a lot of Amy Schumer fans in the audience. So it's really not that much of a niche opinion. But at the same time, if you want to make movies and you want to sell movies, you're going to have a problem doing it if you have all these opinions.
And I'm not even a comedian, and even I understand how to read a room. Shit like that might have played well in New York or LA, but in a red state like Florida, it went down about as well as
she did this in Tampa, Florida? Oh, jeez.
Stripper at a funeral. Not only had she waded into the middle of the most divisive election in living memory and alienated half her audience in the process, but the cracks were beginning to show in her comedy armor as well. People were beginning to notice that there wasn't a whole lot of variety in her comedy shows. Every one of them was just her talking about getting blackout drunk, sleeping with lots of guys, going on awkward dates, and how disgusting she found her own body.
Blacking out, blacked out, blackout.
Yes.
The complaints and backlash against her were mounting, but weirdly for someone who made a career out of self-deprecating humour, Amy turned out to be surprisingly thin-skinned when it came to criticism directed at her. You might think this would have been a good opportunity to reflect on her creative choices and maybe change course a little, but nope, her ego just wouldn't allow for it. Her standard response was to dismiss her critics as haters, misogynists and right-wing chuds who just couldn't handle her political views, instead of acknowledging that maybe her act was becoming—
Anyone who reported that viewers aren't happy with my special, it would have been cool if you did a moment of research before posting. The alt-right trolls attack everything I do.
And kind of stale and predictable. She was also remarkably tetchy about the body she'd spent so long making fun of. After spending years advocating for more
chick at any size? More like chunk.
Sized women in media, Glamour magazine rewarded her by including her in their chic at any size article, which caused her to get all pissy at the implication she was overweight.
I think there's, what does it say? What does she say? I think there's nothing wrong with being plus size. Beautiful, healthy women. Plus size is considered size 16 in America.
No offense, but have you ever looked in a mirror? You've also got to appreciate the irony there. Hey, there's nothing wrong with being plus-sized. In fact, it should be celebrated.
No,
but don't ever call me that. Worse was soon to come, though, when it was revealed that a lot of the jokes from her comedy routines seemed to have been plagiarized from other comedians like Tammy Pescatelli, Kathleen Madigan, Wendy Liebman, and Patrice O'Neill, amongst others. Before you could say talentless hack, YouTube was awash with compilation videos showing Amy's jokes and comedy skits, and the material they seemed to have been inspired by. This is one of—
I feel like there are always going to be cases where people, like, a lot of people tell some similar jokes because, I mean, if you're making an observation about something, a lot of people end up saying the same thing.
The big no-nos in the comedy world. You never steal other people's stuff, and if you happen to, even by accident, you absolutely have to come clean and apologize. Once again, though, Amy's response was just to deny everything and dismiss her critics as sexists and losers. It hadn't really worked before, and with the mountain of evidence piling up against her, it definitely wasn't working now. Public opinion was shifting rapidly. The magazine articles that used to fawn over her were now openly critical of her career and questioning her decline in popularity. It wasn't well on the movie front either.
And this is another factor, is that she used to be relatively conventionally attractive. And then she gained a bit of weight and she stopped being conventionally attractive. I mean, she's not like super hot, but she's conventionally attractive, right? She was. If she lost 50 pounds, she'd be funny again. Exactly. So it's the opposite. So when women lose weight, they become funny. When men gain weight, they become funny.
Her next big project, I Feel Pretty, about a fat woman who gets brain damage and is convinced she's now—
So wait a minute. So she's crashing out about people calling her fat, but she plays the role of a main character that's fat? Wow.
slim and attractive, was supposed to be a feel-good comeback that played to her self-deprecating humour, but instead provoked a storm of backlash with the unintended implication that women can only feel confident through self-delusion. The movie was absolutely lambasted by critics and audiences alike, and further damaged her comedy credentials. More and more, she was beginning to look out of touch and, well, just not that funny anymore. Yeah. Then there was the stuff that just made her look like a generally shitty human being, like willingly taking photos with fans on the street only to bitch about it later on social media to make herself seem like a victim of harassment, or openly bragging about sleeping with a guy who was so blackout drunk that he didn't even know what was happening to him. Flip the genders for a second there and just imagine how that must look.
Amy Schumer used to be a relatively attractive woman who was a bit on the thicker side, but a lot of guys would swipe right on her. And so a lot of women want to see themselves in an attractive woman. They do. And so if they feel like they can relate to an attractive woman and she's saying things that are relatable, it makes them probably feel good about themselves. But the problem is that then whenever you do get fat and you're in movies, nobody wants to watch an actual fat chick in movies. People might not want to hear that, but like a lot of women's popularity has to do with their appearance.
The cumulative effect of all these high-profile setbacks and negative publicity was a career downturn that makes Brie Larson's look like a controlled landing. She was still bagging the occasional movie role, but usually as a supporting actor in low-budget slop that nobody cared about. Yeah. The glory days of Trainwreck were long behind her, and she wasn't a bankable star anymore. She was still making the occasional TV show and comedy special, but the fire and momentum was long gone.
And I think also, like, for a while, there was like a popular, you know, kind of toxic millennial girl, depreciating humor, I'm such a mentality that I think has gone away because a lot of those women are now like 35 or 40 now. Like, for example, like it would be hard for a guy that's like my age to attract an audience of, you know, teenagers, right? Like, unless you're doing like those Andrew Tate type content. But like, in a general sense, I feel like for women, I mean, it's definitely like that's a huge component to it.
She'd gone from one of the leading voices in female comedy to a virtual pariah, disliked by audiences, distrusted by peers, and discredited by movie studios. Amy Schumer is the perfect example of a celebrity who can dish it out but can't take it.
There's a lot of them.
Woman who founded her career on pushing boundaries but couldn't handle it when they started to push back. She was always happy to make jokes about everything and everyone around her, but in the end, the biggest joke of all was on her. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
She was never really that funny, and the gimmick that she had worked well for a while, but then people lost interest in it, and she wasn't able to reinvent herself in a way that was interesting. Comedy changes with time? Yeah, it does. It changes with time, and certain things that were funny aren't funny anymore. It really just depends on, you know, what the culture is at the time, more than anything else.